Let's start with your favorite DFS play from the Boston-Houston game.
I mean, outside of Kike Hernandez, which obviously is a little bit chalky, but I'm going to go with Hunter Renfroe. Of course, he's a value play tonight at 3.9K. He managed to score 13 DK fantasy points in game 3 without getting a hit. So I think there's something to be said about that. But more importantly, he's going up against a guy that he has 3 home runs against in 23 career plate appearances. Renfroe has had some extra base hits in this postseason, but he hasn't been hitting for a ton of power. And he had 31 home runs this season, and 20 of those came against right-handed pitching. So this is a guy he can very well get right against, go deep, and provide Boston with a little bit extra offense.
All right, who are we going to go with, Garion?
Yeah, I'm pretty much good with any right-handed Boston bat. If you look at Zack Greinke's numbers across his last 9 appearances of the regular season, first and foremost, they're just bad. They're bad across the board, but they're specifically bad against right-handed hitters. He allowed righties to hit 306 with a 622 slugging percentage and a 395 WOBA over that span of time. 3.2 home runs per 9 to right-handed batters across those 9 games. So if you want to go with someone like Hunter Renfroe, that's fine. I'm keying in on Xander Bogaerts, who, I mean, I don't really care if he's hot or cold. I don't care if he's 22 or 38. Xander Bogaerts hits at Fenway Park. It's all he's done his entire career. So I'm going to take those home splits and the fact that Greinke's, like I said, really struggling against right-handed bats and just ride with Bogaerts.
All right, Erik, who are we going with?
Well, it's tough not to like most of the bats, I think, given the pitchers here, but I'll go with an Astro, and that's Kyle Tucker at 4,600. I've been suggesting Kyle Tucker on this show, I think, quite a lot throughout the year. I think he's just been underpriced all season. You see it today. He's tied for second in points per game among the hitters on this slate, yet he has the 9th highest price tag, and that's kind of been a pattern we've seen all year. This is a guy who's getting buzz as a late first-round pick in season-long fantasy next year. It's not hard to see why. He does everything. He's got power. He's got speed. He hits for average. There's only 2 qualified hitters this season who can beat his strikeout rate of 15.9% and his barrel rate of 11.6%. Those 2 hitters, you may have heard of them, Juan Soto and Vlad Guerrero Jr. So he's in some excellent contact in terms of his ability to hit for both contact and power, and even steals a few bases. He has 3 steals in 7 playoff games this season. He'll get the platoon advantage against Nick Pavetta too, but I don't even think he needs it to be one of the best plays on tonight's slate.
All right, put on your sportsbook hat here, Garion. What's your favorite bet from Boston-Houston?
So I'm going to take Zack Greinke to give up more than 0.5 home runs at -125. Now, the game here is how long is Zack Greinke actually going to be pitching in this game? But at the same time, he's given up at least 1 home run in 17 of his last 20 appearances, if you're using his regular season statistics. Career worst 1.58 home runs per 9 in the regular season in 2021. He's just not the same guy he was. He's really struggling. And again, if you're going to struggle within a handedness split at Fenway Park, struggle against left-handed batters, because if you're struggling against right-handed hitters at Fenway Park, you're probably going to give up a home run at some point, especially considering how much power this Boston lineup has.
All right, Erik, what is your favorite bet from this one?
Yeah, I was on yesterday, and I said to hammer that over. I think it was set at 9 yesterday. We almost got to the over in the first inning. Over's at 10 here. Same thing. There's going to be a ton of runs. These are 2 of the most offense-skewed teams in the postseason, and they're throwing probably the worst starting pitchers that they're going to throw all playoffs. Nick Pavetta, this is the good version of Nick Pavetta, and he has a career-best 4.53 ERA. An above-average strikeout rate isn't really enough to offset too many walks and not enough ground balls. He's fine, but he's not good for a playoff starter. And Zack Greinke on the other side, Gary just talked about him. Who knows if he's even really a proper starter here. If he goes multiple innings, I think that's good news for the Red Sox. If he's replaced by relievers in the 3rd inning, I think that's good for the Red Sox too. These 2 teams are averaging 11.8 runs in playoff games that at least one of them has played in this season. So I think getting to 10 against these specific pitchers should be pretty easy.
Nick, where are you going?
I rode with Kike Hernandez getting over 1.5 total bases last night, and I'm going to go with that again today. And I think you got to keep considering that until he has back-to-back slow nights. And he has a hit in 7 of Boston's 8 playoff games. 5 of those games have been multi-hit performances, and 3 of those have come in the ALCS. And even if he just gets 1 hit, half of his 18 hits in the postseason have been for extra bases. And then when you look at this matchup tonight, he has 2 home runs and 15 career plate appearances against Zack Greinke. So if you want to go and double down with on Garion's pick too, you can can do that as well. And Hernandez may be the guy that comes through for you. But either way, 1.5 total bases for Kike Hernandez. He's going to hit the over than that easy.
All right, moving on to tonight's other matchup. Erik, what's your favorite DFS play from the Dodgers-Braves game?
Well, if you're playing a slate that includes both of these games, I think you have to find your pitcher here. I don't really think the other guys are going to go very long at all. I think both pitchers are fine choices here, given that there's reason that they may need to go deep. This is the first game out of 3 in a row. I would lean slightly towards Walker Buehler here, although I think you wouldn't go wrong with Morton either. That's mainly because I think the Dodgers have even more incentive to have him go deep into the game because they're already planning a bullpen day in one of the next 2 games. Buehler was allowed to throw 6 1/3 in game 1 of the NLDS. He came back on short rest and still threw 4 1/3. I think he's the best bet of any of tonight's 4 pitchers to go at least 6 innings. And even though I think I'm lower than the field on Buehler this season, his strikeout rate was actually a career low. That's a fine mark at 26%, but not elite, despite that really good ERA. It's all about the workload, I think, in the playoffs for starting pitchers, and he's the one who should have the best chance to go 6 or 7 innings.
All right, Nick, what's your favorite play from this one?
I'm going to go over to the Braves side of this. I'm actually going to go with another value play here with Jock Peterson at 2.9K. He tends to step up in the postseason. We all know Jocktober and everything, right? And at this price, all I'm going to care about with Jock Peterson is, has he taken the starter he's facing tonight deep in his career? Walker Buehler? Yes, he has, in limited plate appearances. And then on top of all that, too, I mean, like Jocktober and everything, but this is also like a revenge series for Jock Peterson, too. So more intangibles in this than anything, but the biggest thing is he's taken Walker Buehler deep before. He does well in the postseason, so I'm going to go with him tonight as a value play.
All right, Garion, who are you going with?
Yeah, I'm going to echo a lot of what Erik said. I think whether you're playing Classic or Showdown, the National League game is where you're getting your pitchers from. However, I mean, it's funny how you can interpret the same information 2 different ways because nothing Erik said was incorrect. I just tend to lean slightly in the other direction with Walker Buehler when it comes to volume in this game. I know the Dodgers are planning to have a bullpen game at some point, whether that is game 4 or game 5, but the fact of the matter is they're down 2-0 right now. And I do think we've seen Dave Roberts hit the panic button early with some amazing starting pitching in games that they have to win. While this technically isn't an elimination game, it's kind of an elimination game. You can't go down 3-0 here. So I think if this were a 1-1 series, I'd probably lean Walker Buehler. But because the Dodgers do have their backs up against the wall and because they might have to do something drastic if Buehler gives up a run in the first inning, which he probably won't. We'll get to that in a second. But I'm going to lean Morton. The strikeout rate is also something that skews towards Morton. I mean, he was a 29% strikeout rate pitcher during the regular season. In his 2 playoff appearances so far in 2021, he's got a 36% strikeout rate. Obviously, the Dodgers are not the Brewers, but I just think Morton has the slight upside advantage here. So I lean Charlie Morton.
All right, real quick on this last one, guys. How about your favorite bet from this one, Nick?
I'm going to go with Braves Dodgers total combined home runs over 2.5 tonight. This is one of those TBS specials that we got going on DK Sportsbook. The big stat for me in this one is the Braves have the second best at-bats per home run rate against right-handed pitching this season, and the Dodgers are 8th in that category. I know the offense has been quiet, and we haven't seen this overhit in either of the first 2 games, and I understand we're also seeing the 2 best pitchers are the best pitching matchup of this series, but these are 2 offenses that hit right-handed pitching this season, and at some point, at least one of them's got to erupt, and I wouldn't be surprised, you could still have a low-scoring game if 3 home runs are hit.
Garion.
I'm going to say no run in the first at -130. You look at the WOBA, the opponent WOBA these 2 pitchers have been able to put up their first time through the order. Just a 231 WOBA for Buehler, just a 224 WOBA for Morton. They are almost unhittable the first time they face a batting order, so no run in the first inning.
Erik, your favorite bet?
So I know I just talked up Walker Buehler, but my favorite bet is Atlanta at +160. I think, as I mentioned before, I only have Buehler slightly ahead of Morton for fantasy purposes. I don't actually think he's all that much better than Charlie Morton. He did beat him in ERA by nearly a run, but they're basically tied in FIP, and Morton actually beat Buehler by 1/4 of a run in xFIP. So it's 2 pitchers who are very close to equal. The lineups have proven pretty equal. I mean, Atlanta's been slightly better so far this year. +160 has implied odds of just 38.5%, and I just think Atlanta has much closer to a 50-50 shot here. I'd probably say they're about a 45% chance to win. So I think +160 is way too good of a deal.